up, everyone? Evan J. Thomas here, the Better Listen Up podcast. So I have a nice special guest today. You might not recognize his face, but my guest today has a very distinct voice where tens of thousands of fans hear him on a nightly basis. So he has introduced legend NBA players like Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, the GOAT himself, Michael Jordan. He's the voice of the NBA 2K video game, two-time NBA All-Star announcer, the voice of the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Fire, the Fighting Illini, and most notably, the Chicago Bulls. Welcome to the Better Listen Up podcast, Mr. Tim Sinclair.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I don't even think, I know you could do better. So at least I was able to kind of get something rolling on you today. So how you doing today? Nice little kind of jumping on with me today, kind of joining me in my non-studio.
Well, I appreciate the offer, and I appreciate all the kind words, too. This will be fun. I always enjoy this kind of thing. So thanks for rattling off the laundry list of things that fill my year.
So I got to ask you, how long have you now been in this position with the Bulls?
This is my third season with the Bulls and with the Bears. I'm getting ready to start my 10th season with the Fire in the spring. And I just started my 8th season doing men's basketball for Illinois basketball. So depends on which thing, but with the Bulls and Bears, 3 years.
So you're a nice busy guy, usually on a daily basis, aren't you?
Certainly this time of year. Yeah. Once fall rolls around into mid-spring, my calendar is pretty nuts.
Yeah, you got college football, you got soccer, you got NFL, you got the Bulls. Now, I wanted to get into this really quick since your third year in the league and with the Bulls. You replaced a legend, Ray Clay. How was it stepping into his position? I mean, he was the voice of the Bulls for almost, 30 years? So how was that trying to transition into a new job replacing him?
Yeah, he and Tommy Edwards actually shared it over the course of about 42 years.
That's right.
Tommy
Okay.
There right before Michael, and then sort of took it right up to the edge of the championship years. And then Ray was there for a decade or so. And then Tommy came back. And so those two are the only voices that most Bulls fans know, because they were doing it since, the early 80s, maybe even late 70s. And so, I mean, obviously the opportunity is one that you cherish, and you feel incredibly fortunate to have the get the phone call and say, hey, are you interested in even trying out? So that part's amazing. But then you realize, oh my goodness, I have to, if I get this job, I have to do it justice. And that kind of is the nervy part, right? Where you go, people have an opinion. Everybody knows it. It's almost universally loved. Certainly in hindsight it is. And so my role was really, I felt, to pay homage to history, but also still be myself, and to bring some new things to the table, and hopefully that mix would work. And thankfully, I've been overwhelmed with positive support since I started, and really, really, really thankful that's how it played out.
And that's got to be tough on your mindset going into this, because you don't want to be like them. You want to be like you, but the people in the crowd kind of want you to be like them a little bit. So trying to find that happy medium where you're still yourself, but you also, like you said, pay homage to the two gentlemen that came before you. So that had been a little tough mentally, just trying to figure out that aspect of it.
Yeah, change is hard for anyone. If there's whether it's good or bad, people get used to whatever they've been used to. And then when things get different, it can sometimes be jolting. And so for me, I knew I had to, we're going to keep the man in the middle. We're going to keep the and now. We're going to keep the serious music. Those things are all sticking around, but I'm not going to try to mimic somebody else. I'm not a celebrity impersonator. I'm me, and they hired me for a reason. And so my goal was to try to put my own spin on how I would have done those intros had I been around when Michael was taking the court. And that's what I've done, and thankfully people have latched onto it, so that's good.
So going into a game, now that you do so many different teams and different sports, what is your prep time like? How long does it take you to kind of get ready for a game, just to kind of get rolling?
Yeah, my job is way easier in that respect than like a play-by-play guy because
Right. Yeah.
while I have to know names and pronunciations and I have to understand the game, I don't have to know stats and know stories and be able to paint that picture, at least not the same way that those guys do. So I typically show up on game day anywhere from 2 to 4 hours early, depending on which sport it is, which arena it is. And then I go through rosters and pronunciation guides and make sure I know who's active, who's not, who's starting, who's not, how to say names that I might not be familiar with. And in the NFL and NBA, it's a little easier because a lot of those guys have been around a while. So
Yeah.
after you've said them once or twice, you know. College is a bit of a different animal because people are rolling through there, new people every year or two, and you get a complete turnover in a lot of cases. And so that is a little harder to make sure you know all these new names that are coming across. And then we rehearse, sometimes it's a little bit depending on the team, sometimes it's a lot, and then it's game time. So I put in about a full day, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours or so per game or match that I work, and it's plenty.
Now I could just see you, Tim, like in the office, just kind of going, Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, Michael, kind of doing the whole different realm of your voice to kind of make sure it fits for when you're about to announce. Is that kind of what you do?
Ironically, no, I don't
Okay.
practice at all. Not,
Wow.
I have never said, okay, I'm going to have to introduce so-and-so today. And so how am I going to say it?
Okay.
Maybe that's flawed thinking, but for me, I really put a very high value on authenticity, and on reading the room and living in the moment and
For
kind
the
of
moment type
react
thing.
to the crowd. And so to me, I want it to come naturally, and I want the thing that I am about to say to not be this rehearsed thing of what are people going to like and what are they not going to like and how can I just kind of do it. And then sometimes it transitions over time. A good example is Ayo Dosunmu. When he first came to Illinois as a freshman out of Chicago, when he'd make a basket, it'd be Ayo Dosunmu. But then he hit a big dagger shot once or a dunk, and the crowd goes crazy, and I just kind of unexpectedly go, Ayo Dosunmu. And that stuck. And that's what people wanted to hear more and more of. And so now pretty much every basket, although with different amounts of intensity,
Yeah.
that's what it is. And so now that he's in the NBA, it stuck. DeMar DeRozan, same thing. When he wasn't on our team or had just started, it was DeMar DeRozan. But then all of a sudden, it gravitates into this DeMar DeRozan. And it's just organic, and I prefer it that way. I think it comes across as more authentic, and hopefully that makes a difference.
I'd totally say so, especially like you said, in the spur of the moment, it just kind of fits for when the emotion is higher compared to just a regular shot. Now, going back to the IO one, you kind of had like the IO silver type kind of enunciation when you started with the IO. So it kind of made sense when you did it. So that sounded pretty cool how it kind of came out.
I think Stacey King has adopted the IO silver a little bit for
Okay.
TV. And so, yeah, that wasn't intentional. Honestly, originally, I remembered how to say it by saying in my head, Old MacDonald had a farm, EIE.
IO.
And that's how I would tell people who wanted to call him AO that's not how it's pronounced. And that was kind of the reminder. So I thought at Illinois, can we get away with a PA guy going EIE and then the crowd chanting IO? But I just felt like that was a little contrived and cheesy, and so we never tried it. But that is how I remember it and how I explain it to other people.
Makes sense. So now that you've been doing this, how long have you been in the industry? I gotta ask that.
My first event ever was with the University of Illinois. I did a baseball game, I think in the spring of, it was either 07 or 08. I don't really remember. And then I got an opportunity to do a few other of their Olympic sports, their softball, wrestling, swimming, diving, etc. So that's kind of what got my start. But I really didn't do it on a super regular basis for any professional teams until 2014.
So did you do any schooling prior to your announcing, or what kind of previous jobs did you have before doing the announcing?
Well, I was an architecture major
Okay.
for 3 semesters at the University of Illinois, and had every intention of continuing that. But I got a part-time job in radio because I happened to know somebody who worked in the industry, and they were like, "Hey, you want to come help?" And I said, "Sure." And all of a sudden, I realized, man, I enjoy this. I'm not very good at it, but I enjoy it, and decided maybe that was what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And so I dropped out of school, went to try to find a full-time radio job, and that's really what sort of set the stage for me. It wasn't until, probably a decade later that I got into doing sports at the same time. And eventually, once the two met, I started going, ooh, maybe this is something that I can turn into a career, even though very few people turn public address into a career.
Yeah, nobody really think that, even though I do have a few friends that do it. So it's pretty cool that, you're one of them too.
Yeah, it's been fun. I can't ask for anything better. I know I'm lucky, and I'll take it.
So about how far back, when people started telling you have the voice for radio, or you should be an announcer or something? How old were you when you first started hearing that?
I hear more often than I have the face for radio, but I remember I was probably late junior high, maybe a freshman year of high school, and a friend I hadn't seen in years, since probably 5th grade, had come to visit, and I had grown up a little bit and my voice had started to change. And I remember him saying, "Whoa, you've got a radio voice now." Now, whether I did at the time or not, I think it was more just hey, your voice has changed since I last saw you. That sort of made me go, I wonder if I do, but literally didn't consider it at all again for a number of years. And I think it is a tool that I've been given, so to speak, something born with, but also it's taken a lot of development and time and work to be able to use it correctly, and whether it be inflection or intensity, or the rise and fall of what you do and how you do it, and when you say stuff and when you're quiet, all those things take a whole lot of years. So I hear it a lot now, but early on I can just remember that one time.
Now, I'm in the music industry, and I know a lot of lead singers who don't really take care of their voices by smoking or drinking or doing whatever. Is there anything specific that you do, either on a daily basis, weekly, or whatever, to kind of keep your voice fresh?
I don't smoke or drink, really, so I guess in that respect, I'm taking care of it. But I do get asked a lot, do you have vocal exercises, or do you drink a certain type of tea, or and I really don't. At games, I have water and a little bit of something carbonated, and between the two, if you get dried out, water is really good to have. It'll just keep you from having a super dry throat and getting parched. The carbonation of a Dr. Pepper or whatever for me helps. I don't know any other way to say it other than it kind of excites the vocal cords a little bit, and it
loosens it up a little bit, I would say.
Yeah. So that's really all I do. If I get a cold and I have a sore throat, sometimes I'll do tea with honey and stuff in it just to try to soothe it.
That's what I figured.
But that's very few and far between.
Gotcha. So going into a Bulls season or a Bears season, how do you just kind of prepare for because you're actually only doing home games then, right? You're never doing away games, so you're the main guy. So actually, then you must most likely just kind of stay here and don't really go too far out. But obviously, you have the Fighting Illini. You got to go to Champaign. But is there any other kind of bucket list jobs on your resume that you would, or not on your resume, but bucket list things that you would want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to do an Olympics in some way, shape, or form, whether it's the opening ceremonies or any of the events would be great. The World Cup would be another. It's going to be in the U.S. in 4 years.
Yes, it will.
Not Chicago, though, unfortunately.
California.
We'll see if I get to travel to go work any of those. A Super Bowl one of these days would be a whole lot of fun to do. That's been locked down for many years by Alan Roach, but who knows? Maybe someday. There's a lot of things I've done that would have been 2 years ago or 3 years ago on my bucket list. The NBA All-Star game twice. Get ready to do the Big Ten championship football game in Indianapolis here in less than a week.
Weekend,
yep. Those things I consider to be bucket list kind of items, and I hope I can add a few more before that bucket gets kicked.
And knowing that you went to Illinois and you announced at Illinois, are you like a fan of these teams, or do you try to stay kind of middle?
Oh, I'm a fan for sure. No question about it. Now, you watch a game differently than a fan does because you're doing a job. But thankfully, my job, unless like the Big Ten championship game, I have to be neutral. Equal excitement, sort of giving a little bit of an edge to both teams, but not being over the top for any one of them. So you have to do that. But with the Bulls and the Bears and the Illini and Fire, I get to be a fan because when LeBron James makes a basket, it's LeBron James.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's DeMar, you're super excited, or Zach, or whoever. So I do get to be a fan, and I definitely am. I watch the games when they're on the road, and I, live and die with those wins and losses too. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
So have you always been a Chicago sports fan, or did you kind of venture out to other teams as well?
Largely, yes. I was actually born in Detroit and lived there until I was in 5th grade. So I kind of grew up with the Pistons and the Tigers and the Lions and the Red Wings and University of Michigan. And
I was just gonna say, are you looking for Michigan to lose this weekend?
No, I'm not looking for. I'm looking to do my job well this weekend. Is what I'm looking to do. But I moved to Illinois then when I was in 6th grade, and that was in 1989. So that was right at the time that things were transitioning from the Pistons being, the bad boys and taking out the Bulls into the Bulls dynasty. And so I got here right on time for that fandom. It appears to be fair weather fandom, but it really was just good timing. And I've been a Chicago and Illinois sports fan ever since.
That's awesome. Do you have any favorite announcers, or I would say, do you have any favorite announcers in the business either now or in the past? I'm going to say just regular sports announcers, not guys that do kind of what you do.
Okay, so guys who are doing play-by-play is the answer. Yeah, I love Mike Breen. He's one of my favorite doing NBA games. He's for those who don't know, he's the bang guy. I think he's classy, but he's excited, but not over the top. He's super well versed in everything. He knows his stuff, and just the way he calls a game, I'm a really big fan of his. I like Joe Buck a lot. He is
so why even people hate on him.
Get it? But I really like how he calls a game, and he's super versatile and being able to do little bits of everything. I really love getting to know Adam Amin. He's sort of one of those guys too, who's incredibly well versed in multiple sports, and so he and I often have a lot to talk about. So I guess from a play-by-play standpoint, those guys would be some of my favorites. There's a lot of good guys out there right now who are, Kevin Harlan and, Ian Eagle. The list is very long. Jim Nantz, not my style per se, but his voice is just like butter.
Yeah, so, smooth. It works out.
Hard to go wrong there.
All right. Any historic calls in history that you are a fan of from announcer?
Man, there's a number of them. I grew up in Detroit. I grew up with Ernie Harwell on the radio doing Tigers games, and there wasn't a whole lot of historic calls. But when I think of my own personal history, I think of Ernie a lot and how he would tell stories and weave them through a game, much like Pat Hughes does now for the Cubs. I would say Kirk Gibson's home run for the Dodgers when he came in to pinch hit.
Vin Scully, right?
Oh, yeah. That would be one of mine. I think, gosh, Al Michaels, The Miracle on Ice, do you believe in miracles? I was 2 when that happened, but that's one of them that when you just listen back to the best calls in history that keeps coming up, and it was just absolutely perfect. And can't get much better than that one.
And one of the cool ones that I always throw in on this is the Jack Buck one when Ozzie Smith hit the home run to win for the Cardinals. And then Joe Buck, a few years back, did one similar with his dad with the Cardinals. I think it was a Rangers game in the World Series. So he kind of played that off just like that. So that to me is one of my favorites. Now, any athletes that you want to announce that you never have?
Oh, well, up until February this past year, I hadn't gotten to introduce Michael Jordan for anything. And so getting to do the NBA 75th on TNT and kind of narrate that whole thing, that was a dream come true, to be able to have all those guys in one place and to introduce Michael. I've always kind of regretted that I never got to do Kobe. I've done it so many times on the world's biggest stage since he's died, to introduce him or his wife, and scholarship, like all sorts of things surrounding. Like I did the Chicago All-Star game in 2020, which was like 3 weeks.
3 weeks after he passed, yeah.
And so they had Jennifer Hudson there to do a tribute song to him. So I did a lot around his life, but I never got to introduce him, which I really wish I could. I'd like to do Ronaldo. I've done Messi. Got him out of the way when he came to Chicago in 2016 with Argentina. So that's one. I would say Mike Trout, maybe, because he's the best baseball player on the planet, and I think will go down as one of the best to ever play the game. And I want to kind of get the best to ever play the game in every sport. And I'm missing baseball. And then Wayne Gretzky, I would like to introduce him at something. Obviously, it wouldn't be at an actual sporting event that he's playing in, but in some sort of ceremony, I would love to get him checked off the list as well.
Now, for the baseball one, obviously you would have to get a job for a baseball team to do that. But I think there was a game last year with the Cubs where there was another announcer from another sport that always wanted to do a game, and they actually let him do it. So that would be kind of cool if you could ask and be like, hey, Cubs, the Angels or when the White Sox, just be like, hey, can I do one game and announce, Mike Trout? Maybe you can run that route.
Maybe. I've done 3 White Sox games, so I fill in for Gene from time to time. I did one
Honda.
of the Tigers, and I got Miguel Cabrera, which he's not the best to ever play it, but he's one of the few to have 3,000 hits. So that's as close as I've gotten so far. I did a Dodgers game this past year too with the White Sox, and so obviously got some solid guys there. But one of these years, I'm going to get Trout one way or the other.
All right. So before we go, you know what I have to ask you to do? You probably know.
Some version of it, yes, I know. What would you like?
Can you pull off your best intro for Michael Jordan for us?
Sure.
My favorite athlete of all time, so I got to go that route.
Agreed. Here we go. All right. From North Carolina, a 6'6" guard, number 23, Michael Jordan.
There it is. We got him to do it. You wouldn't throw in Michael Jeffrey Jordan, would you?
I mean, I could have, but I was trying to be as close to, a normal lineup as possible.
That's awesome. So obviously you're all over the place right now. You got the Big Ten championship this weekend. You got the Bears. You got the Bulls. Do you have a favorite sport?
I played basketball growing up, and I probably more than anything else work basketball now because I do college and pro. So if I was nailed down and had to choose, it would probably be basketball. But in terms of my favorite sport to work, I like them all for different reasons. Basketball, You're on the court, you're courtside, seeing all the guys, and you're really a part of the action. Football, you're a little bit more removed. but it's really hard. That's a difficult job to do, is to keep track of 22 people who are constantly running off the field, and they're wearing helmets, and there's all sorts of things that can go wrong. So I enjoy that part of football. And soccer, I kind of get to sit back and watch soccer, and then every once in a while you have to say something during a game. So that's just more of an enjoyable sports watching experience, where the others feel more like a job sometimes. But they're all great, and I'm a blessed man to get to do what I do.
I was just gonna say, you have a job that many would love to have. So, that's awesome that you have to do it. You get to do it. And the fact that you do it so well, this is why you're loved by everybody, and you're in so many different things. It's just awesome to know that you got this. And just before we go, where can we find you on the social media if you're interested in putting it out there?
Absolutely. Tim, the letter J, Sinclair is my handle on pretty much everything. So TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. You can find me there. My website is the same, Tim, the letter J, Sinclair.com.
Interesting. And that's how I found you on Twitter. So there.
Perfect. Well done. It works.
Exactly. It definitely works, because I got you on the show. So Tim, I really appreciate you joining me today on the Better Listen Up with Evan J. Thomas show. And hopefully I'll be able to get out to a game sometime and maybe even meet you. So we'll see if we can ever do that. So
if you're at a game, shoot me a note. We'll make that happen.
I definitely will. All right, man. So once again, Tim Sinclair, he is the voice of the Chicago Bulls, the Chicago Bears, the Chicago Fire, the Fighting Illini, and many others. So thank you again. Enjoy this, and check us out on the socials. Better Listen Up with Evan J. Thomas show. There you go. That's it.
Thanks, Evan. Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.